Boopity boop. This E3 coverage is brought to you by Ting, mobile that makes sense. Hey guys, Nick here for Rev3 Games, and last night I got to go hands-on with Rainbow Six Siege, a game you might remember from the end of Ubisoft's press conference. For those who don't know, it's sort of a multiplayer-focused reboot. They said about a year and a half ago they decided to scrap Patriots and focus on rebooting it as a multiplayer-first game, and it's a very destruction-centric take on the franchise. So blowing holes in walls is a big part of it, breaching windows. It's actually very, very focused on these small environments. So the part we saw was a house that you kind of breach, and you take turns in these very short, tight, 2-minute, 30-second rounds as either the Rainbows, who are sort of the SWAT team who breaches the place, or the enemies, which is literally just what they're calling the enemies for now. The Rainbow team spends the beginning of the round sending in these drones that you can kind of control. Everyone starts as drone for the first 30 seconds, and you roll through the building trying to find the hostage, which you might remember from the demo. You can kind of go up the stairs, down the stairs. Enemies can shoot you and disable you, but they usually won't bother because they're busy trying to reinforce the building. One thing that I thought was really cool about this actually is that once you go from that first 30-second intro mode with the drones to the actual gameplay, all those drones become cameras that you can check at any point during the round by hitting up on the D-pad. So there's an actual meaningful impact to where you end up leaving your drone. As the enemies who have kidnapped the hostage, you spend the beginning of the round fortifying the building, finding windows to lock up. You have infinite fortifications on windows and a limited amount of fortifications on walls. And basically wherever you choose to spawn the hostage is the room you want to fortify and the rooms adjacent to it. And there are sort of pros and cons to every room. Like upstairs, they'd have to come up to get to you, but they could also rappel through the windows. If you have your hostage kept in the basement, they could totally just blow through the ceiling above you and come down that way. There are a lot of considerations that you have to take into account when literally any surface in the game, for the most part, is destructible. I did have one experience where I couldn't destroy a wall, and from talking to the guys on their team, it was sort of like a weird middle wall that was like adjacent to a door that was really thick. They said the good shorthand for figuring out what you can blow up is whether or not it's a white. So any white wall is okay to blow up, and you don't just have to use explosives to blow it up either. The shotgun is kind of the only weapon in the game that can blow through walls by itself. You can't really do it with machine gun alone. But that's kind of cool because the shotgun character in your team can sort of blow holes in the wall and make points for you to peek through and shoot when you're waiting for the enemies to come down. The goal as the Rainbows is to get in there, get the hostage, and get out, but the primary win condition, at least in the rounds I played, is to just kill everyone on the other team, because the rounds are permadeath. Now they're only 2 minutes and 30 seconds long, so it isn't exhausting waiting for yourself to respawn, but there's something kind of cool about that, and it makes it extremely tense that when you die, you're dead, unless you're only half dead and then someone revives you, but that's whatever, that's a whole other thing. I also asked them if there were any other win conditions, and they said that if you escape with the hostage when you're the raiding team, that's a win. And if you are the team who kills the hostage, whoever killed the hostage loses. So there's sort of an alternate lose condition going on at the same time, so you kind of want to be a bit more careful when fighting around the hostage on both sides. Overall, it was just a really, really tense experience. We had a guy guiding us on the team who was with Ubisoft, so he kind of already knew the ropes, but we spent a lot of time building up walls, trying to huddle in corners, and just generally kind of being scared as hell that enemies would come through any angle. There's this real tension to it that I feel like is kind of the most interesting part. The destructible environments are cool and are definitely meaningful, but that wasn't the most exciting part of the game for me, it turns out. They affected a lot, and they changed the way you think about combat in that environment, but ultimately it's just the fact that they could come from anywhere, including the windows, rappelling up them. There's this constant threat that is actually kind of enabled by the destructible environment that you're always thinking about. It's really, really intense. But yeah, this sort of breaching versus fortification gameplay is neat, I think, because it's asymmetrical and you're constantly switching sides, and that to me kind of is more interesting than the traditional perfectly symmetrical 4-on-4 deathmatch type stuff that we're more used to seeing. It's a really neat idea. It felt like this demo was just one tiny proof of concept on one level with one game type, and I'd like to see what they expanded into from here. But they did say multiplayer focused and multiplayer first, and that is exciting to me as someone who did enjoy what I got to play with it. So yeah, that's what I thought of my time with Rainbow Six Siege. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments and I'll get to them when I'm not running around the show floor. It's a pretty cool idea and a pretty next-gen feeling multiplayer experience, which is kind of what I'm looking for here this week, is things that kind of feel like they're representative of the future of video games. So yeah, pretty interesting stuff. Hey, if you're enjoying our E3 coverage, you can support us by checking out Ting, a cell phone service provider where you only pay for what you use. 98% of people, that's a 9 followed by an 8, would save money by switching to Ting, sometimes hundreds of dollars a year. Here's what makes Ting different from your current plan. With Ting, you only ever pay for what you use, and so if you're like me and never use the actual phone part of your phone bill that month would be $0. Ting is also completely contract-free, which means no early termination fees, and Ting will even help you pay your network's early termination fees so you can make the switch over. They've even got a savings calculator to help you figure out exactly how much you'd save in just a couple of seconds. Support us by going to rev3games.ting.com and you'll get $25 in credit off your first bill or device.